Okay, so the Battle of Hunain was a huge win, but the story was far from over. See, the rest of the enemy army? They didn't just surrender, they ran, and they hid behind the massive walls of the At-Taaif fortress. What happens next isn't just another siege, it's really a masterclass in thinking outside the box, in patience, and in a kind of mercy that, you'll see, ends up being stronger than any weapon they had. All right, let's get into this next part of the story.
So you'd think, right? The battle's won, the enemy is trapped, this should be the easy part. But no. The fortress of At-Taaif was a whole different beast, a much, much tougher challenge. The fight on the open field was done, now the real test of patience and smarts was just getting started.
Okay, so picture this. The Muslim army, fresh off their victory, rolls up to the walls of At-Taaif. They're ready to wrap this whole thing up. They start setting up camp, but they've made a huge mistake. A really, really bad one. They're way, way too close to those walls.
And things went south. Fast. I mean, immediately. That first campsite, it turned into a shooting gallery. Arrows just started raining down on them from the fortress. We're told that guys were getting hit before they could even finish unpacking their gear. It was a total disaster. A direct attack? Forget it. It was impossible. A complete tactical nightmare.
So what do you do in a situation like that? This is where you see some really incredible leadership in action. The prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, didn't just stubbornly stick to the plan. He didn't double down on a bad call. Nope. He talked to his companions. And a veteran soldier, Al-Hubab ibn Amundar, gave some solid advice. And based on that, the order came down immediately. Move the camp. Get everyone out of the archer's range. The lesson here is pretty clear, right? Listen to the people who know what they're talking about.
Okay, so the army is now safe. Phase 1 is over. But now comes the big question. How in the world do you break into a fortress that looks completely unbreakable? Well, the answer was technology. They were about to unleash a whole arsenal of new tools and tactics, stuff that nobody in Arabia had really seen before.
And this is where you really see how flexible their thinking was. First, they bring out a catapult, a brand new piece of tech for them, and just start pounding the walls. Then, to get soldiers up close, they use something called a dababa. Think of it like a big wooden tank on wheels, covered in leather to stop the arrows. And to stop any enemy cavalry from charging out, they scattered these things called caltrops all over the ground. They're these nasty wooden spikes, basically ancient landmines. This wasn't just throwing men at a wall. This was smart, innovative stuff.
But then, right in the middle of this tough, grinding siege, something happens. Something that just changes the entire dynamic. It's one of those moments where military tactics suddenly take a back seat to something else, to a moral code. So to try and speed things up and break the stalemate, they went for a classic siege tactic. Hit them where it hurts. The order went out to start burning the enemy's farms, their vineyards, their date palm trees. This was textbook stuff, you know? A standard way to put pressure on the people inside and break their will to fight. And then, you hear this shout from the walls. A desperate plea. But the people inside, they didn't argue military strategy. They didn't say this is a war crime. They appealed to something deeper. They begged for mercy, for the sake of God, and for the sake of the family ties they shared.
And just like that, he ordered his men to stop. Immediately. Just stop. I mean, think about that for a second. This was a totally valid military tactic. It was working, and it was abandoned in an instant, all because of an appeal to mercy. Military strategy just got overruled by morality. That's huge.
So where does that leave them? A direct attack is out. Their main pressure tactic is off the table. The siege is just dragging on, costing them time and resources. They needed a new plan. And this is where the strategy takes a turn you just wouldn't expect. They start moving towards a very different idea of what victory even means.
And sure enough, during another meeting, one of the companions, a man named Nafal, comes up with this perfect analogy. He says, look, the enemy in that fortress, they're like a fox in a den. You can stand there all day trying to dig it out, wearing yourself out, or you can just leave it alone. It can't hurt you while it's in there. And that one simple idea, it changed everything.
This is really the key takeaway, this complete shift in thinking. What does it mean to win? Does it mean you have to break down that wall and force them to surrender, no matter how many of your own people get hurt? Or is victory just making sure they're no longer a threat so you can save your strength and focus on the bigger picture? They made the smart call. Trade that short-term flashy win for a much bigger, long-term strategic victory.
Now, that's easy for us to say, but for the soldiers on the ground, This was tough to swallow. The order comes down, pack it up, we're leaving. And a lot of them were just frustrated. You can hear them complaining, right? What do you mean leave? We haven't even won yet. They wanted that clear-cut victory. This felt like walking away with the job half done.
And it's right here, in this moment of frustration, with the army turning its back on this fortress that they couldn't conquer. This is where the most powerful lesson of the whole story happens. And it's not another military tactic or a clever strategy. It's something else entirely.
And you get it, right? The soldiers are angry. They've been taking fire. They've seen their brothers get hurt. And the enemy is still just sitting there, defiant. So they go to the prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, with a request. They ask him to curse the tribe of At-Taaif, to call down God's wrath on them for everything they've done.
So he raises his hands ready to pray, and everyone expects a curse. But that's not what happens. Instead of a curse, he says a prayer for them, for the very same people who had been trying to kill them just moments before. He prayed that they would be guided, that they would find the truth, and one day join them. It's just a total reversal. Instead of vengeance, he chooses mercy.
And that, right there, is the ultimate lesson from the siege of At-Taaif. It shows us that real strength isn't just about having the latest weapons or the smartest strategy. The biggest victory, the one that really lasts, is a victory of character. It's about choosing to guide people instead of destroying them, choosing mercy when you could have chosen revenge. Because at the end of the day, conquering a city made of stone, that's temporary. But winning the hearts of people, that can change everything. Peace and blessings be upon you.